So this question comes from a Reddit user who wanted to remain anonymous. And their question is fundamentally, is there any way that I can just not get hurt? But let's understand the bigger context of what they're asking. So they go on to say, why do criticisms from my loved ones hurt the most? Like when they blurt out things like, you're too sensitive, you're too naive, you're too emotional. And when I speak up about how much it hurts me, they'll say, it's just the truth. I never disagree on it, but I wish they could have said it in a more gentle way. It keeps me wondering what other ways to keep myself from hurting from hearing those things. Like I genuinely can't stop getting hurt by these words. Is there any way that I can just not get hurt? I really want to improve on myself. Now, the answer to this question is so important. I was going to do this as part of a bigger Q&A video, but the answer to this question is so fundamental in how helpful it can be to your relationships and how you communicate, how you hear things, how you respond to things. And that's what we're going to do today, is give you that answer. And this is going to be so helpful to you, whether or not you stumbled upon my channel by accident or you're returning, which thank you if you are. This is going to be so important, probably one of my most important videos to date. So stick around. Let's get started. Now, there are a lot of different personality types, a lot of different ways of hearing, understanding, speaking information to other people. And a lot of times we speak in our cognitive functions. In other words, if you are somebody who is highly logical, well, you're going to say a lot of logical things. If you're somebody who's very emotional and very aware of the emotional information around you, you're going to speak with emotional tones, words, right? So whenever you are hearing that information and giving that information, it tends to be, for lack of a better word, kind of flavored with that cognitive function that you use the most. And so whenever other people speak in a different kind of information, it sounds wrong. You really don't want to hear it. So for this person's saying, hey, listen, I have family members who are saying you're too naive, you're too sensitive, you're too emotional. And they're saying, why can't they say it? If they're going to say those things, why can't they say it, at least be a little more gentle about it? And that's probably because that is how they would do it, because that is their cognitive functions. I believe, I may be misremembering this, I believe the person might be an INFP, but they are saying, hey, why can't you be a little nicer when you say that? And this is the thing on how you want to be able to listen to the other information that people are trying to give you. Now, if you look at all the different types, there's a lot of different ways of how we perceive and judge information. And so that person who maybe is highly logical is going to always be thinking in that kind of information and seeing that information, and they're going to give that information in that way. So that person, let's say that they're an uncle or a grandfather who says, hey, you know what, you're being a little too naive, or you're too sensitive. The problem is in our cognitive functions, and where we all get tripped up. This is everybody. This isn't just an INFP or feeler types or just thinking types. It's everybody in their cognitive functions. Whenever they are reactive, they're defensive, they aren't listening to the information. And what I mean by that is that we are busy judging the information, and we're judging the person. You always like this with me. You always say these things, and so I'm not even listening to the information. I'm judging the person, or I'm thinking about maybe I'm going into introverted sensing and my past experiences with this person and going, you always do this to me. And maybe I start going into the NE and the NI, and I start thinking of the future, and you're always going to be like this with me. I don't even know why I bother. And that's the problem, right? Is you are not being present with the information. You're judging it, you're projecting it, you're guarding against it. So in this person's experience, whenever the other person says, hey, you're too sensitive, they're saying, well, that's not the right way to say that. Instead of trying to be present with the information and going, okay, so take out my feelings, take out my judgments, take out how I'm hearing it, and let me just be present with the information. Am I too sensitive? Is there a truth there? Is there information that is correct there that I should be considering? Because maybe I don't consider that. Maybe I devalue it. Maybe it's in my unconscious. I don't even look at it. I don't even consider it. And so somebody else who maybe is high logic says, hey, here's information that you might be missing. You know what? Sometimes you're too sensitive. And what you need to do, what we all need to do, this is every type, in all the different kinds of relationships. This could be with your spouse, could be with a coworker, could be with family. And whenever they give you information, stop trying to judge it. Stop trying to project it into the past or the future, and simply be present with the information and go, they're saying that I'm too sensitive. If I look at that information and take it at face value, this is information that says I'm too sensitive. Is that true? Is there truth there? And if I think about it, maybe I would actually even agree with them and say, you know what, you're right. You know, sometimes I can be too sensitive. And whenever I've taken it out of the judging and the forecasting in the past, and I just look at it in the present and look at the information and say, is this true? There may be sometimes I am too sensitive. Or whenever the person said, you know, you're too naive. Again, instead of being defensive, instead of kind of, and again, in that defense, a lot of times what we're doing is guarding against our ego, which is made up of our cognitive functions, our main ego functions. And we're trying to stop that information from going too far down, say into our unconscious, or information that we don't value. And whenever you're resistant, that's usually when you know you're receiving information that is going against your ego that you might really need to consider. It's very important. So whenever someone says you're being too naive, if you stop and look at it and you say, okay, they often say this to me. Let me think of the occasions they have said that. Well, there was this time that I got cheated out of some money and they told me I shouldn't trust the person. Maybe there was a time I got into a relationship with somebody and people said, hey, you know, they're using you for this or that, and I didn't listen. And you know, now here I am again, and they're saying, hey, you're too naive. What are they saying I'm too naive about? And has this happened multiple times? And if I just look at it as information and I go, last time they said I was naive, I did this, and this time I did this, and now I've done this. Maybe there's some truth. Maybe I need to consider this information. What should I do about it? Maybe I need to have better boundaries with people. Maybe I need to stop being so trusting. And that's something that maybe I should look at. And when I look at the information and stop judging it and projecting and judging them, and I look at it and I go, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe I have been a little too naive sometimes. Maybe I am too sensitive sometimes. Maybe I am too emotional sometimes. You're right. And the thing is the person who is asking this question, I don't think that they necessarily disagree with what is being said. They're not saying you're wrong. They're saying, I just don't want to hear it. I don't like the way that you say it, right? Because they're guarding against it. They're going, I'm going to judge you. Let's put the judgment on you. You're mean. The way that you said that. And I don't want to discount that. That doesn't mean that just because you are willing to hear the information and understand it, that makes the other person right automatically, that the way that they said it is okay. And somebody might say that to them and say, you know, you could be a little nicer on how you approach things and how you say things. And that is information they should be considering, going, you know, I keep hearing that from people. People keep saying, just because you're right doesn't mean that you can just kind of blurt out things like that. You could say it with a little bit more tact. And if they hear that enough times, and they will stop projecting and they start listening and being present in that information, they go, I often hear that. Maybe there's some truth in there. Maybe I should consider my words and how I want to say that to people before I say it. And that's what we're talking about in your relationships, and how you communicate is to stop being reactive. Stop judging it. Stop putting it in the past. You've done this to me before. Stop going there. Stop going into the future. Well, you're just gonna stop where you are. You're not being present with the information. You're trying to judge it. And usually what you're doing is protecting against looking at it. And if you're just simply present and you listen to the information the other person is saying, then you can stop being reactive. You can stop getting especially emotionally reactive, because that's what happens when people try to show us information that is not in our main ego functions. We get reactive. We get very upset, aggressive, reactionary, and we're not listening to the information. That's what most arguments, especially in relationships, that's where the arguments are a lot of times, is we're reacting to how we feel, not what's being said. And if we could just listen to what is being said and go, okay, I felt it this way, but you know what? That's not what you are saying to me. You're actually saying something that if I really just stop and objectively look at it, it's very true. And if I can understand that, and I can start being present with the information, I can stop being hurt by it, and I can start responding to it, and then I can start living it.